I like how you said that. I know I've told my kids the analogy. At least here in the United States, there are very few cities you can drive to and from in one single highway. Usually, you got to take a highway or a motorway, as you guys call it, and then change into a different one that may be going west. Where you're going is north, but this particular highway is going west, and it seems like you're going off course, but it's taking you to another highway that then you exit into, and that takes you north, right? So I like how you brought that all together, because what I'm basically getting from you, which I tend to agree, actually I fully agree, is everything in your life builds upon itself. Your experience in those years being in corporate America has become very useful, not only for you into attaining the goals that you're attaining today, but then as a mindset coach, helping others
Yeah.
attain their goals. So let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about the tough times.
Hmm.
Um, so you come back, from Borneo. You eventually decide to leave your career and go straight on. There's a mental challenge there and a planning challenge there, but then you get going and you start doing more and more adventure type activities. What was the toughest time for you as you started doing more of these races and more challenges and kind of raising your own bar? Talk
Mm.
to us about some difficult times where you had to dig or pull from somewhere in order to complete the goals that you had set for yourself.
Oh, some tough times. Many. um, I think so. When I was on my Alpine coast to coast expedition, which I mentioned at the beginning, was to climb the highest mountains in the Alps and then cycle between them. One of the reasons I set myself that challenge was because I wanted to put myself in a situation over and over again where I didn't have I was at rock bottom basically. And I wanted to see what it felt like to pursue, to keep going, to find the motivation or the drive or the energy, to just keep going. Because that's how I thought, this is how I'm going to build those tools to be able to do that. And I thought, if I can't do that when I'm like cycling through the Alps, okay, it might be raining, it might be thunderstorming, whatever, but those aren't really comparable to real life challenges that I'm potentially going to face. Um, so yeah, for me, adventure is this great way of actually facing adversity and training ourselves to be able to cope with adversity and finding out who you are when you are faced with adversity is, in my opinion, the most powerful and valuable thing that we can do, because we're all going to face that at different points in our lives. I'm going to have to call on that part of ourselves. And when it happens to me outside of adventure, when it happens to me for professional, personal reasons, then I call on that part of myself, and it's like, okay, I really wish I wasn't here right now, but I am. So we know the drill. We've got this. We cycled through those countries, we climbed those mountains, done the Ironmans. We've been through lots of stuff in our life before, so let's go. I think entrepreneurially, I had the years between sort of 20, I'm going to say like 2015 and 2019 were just absolutely nonstop. And I was like at the crest of this wave of sort of what is now like influencer marketing, especially being a creator, being a storyteller in the space of outdoor and adventure sports, being a woman in that space. So if I could have like cloned myself 3 times, I would have still had, more than enough opportunities to go for. And because a lot of that was, everything that I was doing was very physically and emotionally, mentally draining. So I was going from like doing a challenge like 24 hours of Tough Mudder in Vegas to then flying back, and then 2 days later I'd be on a stage somewhere giving a talk, and then doing all my social media in between that. I was building events, like taking people cycling from London to Paris in 24 hours. I was building Trailblazers, which is my youth empowerment project, to build confidence and courage in teenage girls who are struggling with mental health. And I was just doing all of this stuff and I was loving it so much. But it absolutely took a lot from me. And it meant that a lot of my personal life kind of had to go on hold. And I think that's the thing in life, is that everything comes at a cost. And now I think that to myself, I think we had some conversations when I was in Lake Nona about me now being able to differentiate my value and my identity from, and my self-worth from, what I'm achieving, what I have achieved in the world, or the things that people might think, sort of think of like as successful, as things I have done. Because for me, that isn't the whole picture. And the whole, I now see everything as like, the first thing that I'm going to think of is, oh, but at what cost? And it's amazing to have these dreams and these aspirations to want to change the world and build all of these fantastic different ventures, but it absolutely takes things out of you and away from you. And so now I'm at this place where I can build my future, but very clearly knowing, like, I don't want to make the kind of sacrifices that I've done before.
Well, that in itself is a lesson, for all of us, right? The idea that we have to sacrifice everything always is something that is pretty alive and well in some circles, and I agree with you. It's there's got to be some balance. Obviously, life comes with sacrifices. Life
Mm.
comes with pain in the physical sense or in the mental sense. I remember my friend Charlie, who I mentioned, Charlie Engel, who ran across the Sahara. He has a phrase that he always used and I always reuse in the physical sense, where he says that you have to redefine your relationship with pain, because pain is actually something that helps you grow. Very
Mm-hmm.
different than injury, right? So on the physical side, you gotta be able to learn the difference between pain and injury, because one you can push through, the other one you have to tell yourself to stop and try again later, right? But that same analogy applies in the rest of your life, and how do you manage your business, family life, friends, the community, how to go about telling the difference between when to keep going and when to stop and reevaluate. And I like how you've set this up, because we've talked about, your challenges, how you got started, but we've also talked about how you are doing other things to give back. You're saying you're a mindset coach, you have a program for teenage girls. Let's talk about a little bit of that for a moment. What drove you to create, in particular, this program for teenage girls, and how is that coming along?
Well, I feel as though, and you probably gained this from everything I've said so far, but that everything that I learned about how to navigate the world, and this experience that we're all having as human beings, I learned after education, after school. I learned by putting myself out there into the world, and so I feel like the education funnels people into a certain, it's sort of, okay, if you achieve these grades, then you'll be able to go off and achieve what you want with your life. But for me, if you're not confident in who you are, you're never going to be able to put yourself out there into the world, and you're never going to be able to, rise the storms and be resilient. So essentially, I wanted to go back, and I wanted to give back to girls um, that perhaps don't have the same kind of support network that I had at home, or opportunities, and just give them those tools and that opportunity to be in a place and be in an environment to feel that love and support that they don't have, and to be able to figure out who they are without that sea of noise around them that's constantly telling them, like I said earlier, like who you should be, how you should look. The stuff that's come out of my work with these young girls has just been phenomenal. And they are often described by their teachers as invisible. So they're not necessarily the ones who are causing trouble or failing in their schoolwork or anything like that. They're not missing school. They're just trying to be completely invisible to reduce the amount of attention that gets put on themselves. So they just don't put their hand up or volunteer or participate in anything. They just, the status quo is just like this. Just be as invisible as you can. And to bring them into this environment where we cultivated this environment of trust and safety, and you can't have trust and connection without vulnerability. So that was really beautiful as well, like creating, fostering this environment where they wanted to be vulnerable and they could, and they felt safe to do that. And then the breakthroughs that come from that. And just I, even though I've done a lot of extreme things in my life to build and challenge myself, I take a very, very compassionate, kind of like very different approach with other people. I mean, obviously, if someone comes to me and they're like, I want to do the biggest thing that I can imagine, 100% I'll support you. But mostly we need to do the small things to start building and compounding that confidence and start taking those steps forward. So yeah, we just the first time I ever did a workshop with the girls, I was in a complete state of flow, and I don't think at the time I even knew what that meant. But I remember going home afterwards and thinking, for those 2 hours that I was with them, the world did not exist outside that room. I wasn't aware at the time. I wasn't thinking of anything. I was just so in flow state, and it came from inside me. It was like I'd never had any training of how to work with these girls before, how to deliver a workshop or how to engage people that don't engage at all with anything. It just came from inside me, and I was just, this is what I was born to do. This is what I'm so passionate about. And so from there, I've done a bunch of workshops in schools. I've also taken them on adventure camps, which is just amazing in itself, because a lot of these girls have never left London before. We're getting them down to the coast. They're seeing the sea, they're swimming in the sea, they're seeing the sunrise, like just all these beautiful natural things that are accessible, but they've never really been part of it before. And then we also have done some sailing trips, which were phenomenal, because I think that one of my favorite quotes and the one that inspired me to quit my job was, "A ship in the harbor is safe, but it's not what a ship was built for. Go sailing." So I love like bringing them on board the boat, and that then creates a very unique environment for change and growth, because it's so, it's the word I'm looking for. It's eluded me. You can't escape, really. You're on this vessel, you're sailing out into the sea. It's a very unique opportunity for growth. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been up to with the Trailblazers. I've also done a few camps in America and the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and we're looking to grow and build that, and seeing where the next steps go to.
That is fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. As I told you, this was going to fly.
I know.
We are out of time. So what I like to do is give you an opportunity to say some final things for the audience. Um, Things that I like to leave the audience with some action, some inspiration, and then maybe where can they find more about you and what you do.
Okay. So some action points. I think for me, it's something that I come back to over and over again, is just constantly taking those steps forward. And even if if the path ahead isn't clear, or I feel like I'm at roadblocks, or I'm in something's happened to create the challenges that I'm currently facing, I just keep taking steps forward. And whether those are looking after myself and investing in my physical and mental well-being, or being kind, and putting kindness and like generosity out into the world, or sending a couple of emails, or posting something on social media. Like, I always think of it as like these ripple effects that go out into the world, and that's what I always think to myself. Just create that momentum, even if you don't know where it's going to go to, or where it's going to lead to, or how you're going to get to where you want to go to. Just create that momentum, and it's those baby steps that end up leading to these big dreams that we all have. So that's the first thing that I would say. And I think when it comes in terms of like resilience and like you said, pain, I've got this sweatshirt that I wear, and it says, "If you need me, I'll be in the pain cave." And it's this sort of like joke, like, well, that's where you can find me because that's where the magic happens, you know? So I love what you said before from Charlie about reimagining our relationship with pain, and I couldn't agree more. And when we're in these challenging, like I said, for me, facing adversity is the most powerful and valuable experience that I've ever put in front of myself. You find out just phenomenal things about yourself, and you find out that most of the things that you're afraid of, they're they're not really real, and you can overcome them. Um, and I think then the last thing that I would say, because I know you love three thoughts on, is just to have fun. You know, just to remember that that's what we came here to do, is to explore and be creative and curious. And I think that whole flow state is like getting out of your own way to actually create optimum experiences and optimum performance. And for me, it's like just buckle up for the ride, enjoy the journey, and you know, I think the more that I do that, the more that I loosen my hold on knowing, which is so hard. The more that I can sit with the uncertainty and trust and surrender to it and just control the controllables, which is how am I being every day? What am I doing every day? And what am I putting out into the world? The more that the world brings so much abundance and joy and opportunity and adventure and things that I could never conceive in a million years.
That's fantastic. Where can people find more about you?
You can find me. I'm on all social media channels as Challenge Sophie. My website is exactly the same, challengesophie.com. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well. My name is Sophie Storm Roberts, and I always love hearing from people who've listened to podcasts. So feel free to reach out. It'd be fantastic to hear from you. And if anybody wants to find out about any of the different avenues of my work, then I'd love to hear from you as well.
Well, Sophie, thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for making the time for me. This has been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Love the energy that you bring to what you do. It is evident that is driven by passion and not by achievement. We had that conversation when you were here.
We
I
did.
think that that puts you in a category that's very unique, as there's a lot of folks that they're looking for the achievement. There is a fire in you that's separate or separated from achievement. So thank you for making the time, and I guess we'll be talking soon.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.